I know that Trump's proclivity for violence isn't exactly newsworthy these days, but his latest threat is a new low even for him. With his indictment all but imminent in the Manhattan District Attorney's case, Trump took to Truth Social and wrote, "What kind of person can charge another person, in this case a former president of the United States, who got more votes than any sitting president in history and leading candidate by far for the Republican Party nomination, with a crime when it is known by all that no crime has been committed, and also known that potential death and destruction in such a false charge could be catastrophic for our country. Why and who would do such a thing? Only a degenerate psychopath that truly hates the USA." And I hope you caught one line in particular, that quote, "potential death and destruction in such a false charge could be catastrophic for our country." In other words, he is signaling to his supporters that should he be indicted for what he's calling the absence of a crime, then there may be death and destruction. And of course, recognize the word that he throws in there, potential death and destruction. Per usual, he gives himself just enough cover so that he can very obviously get his message across to his supporters while still maintaining some degree of plausible deniability by throwing in words like potential. This way, when the death and destruction do ensue, Trump can always fall back on this notion that he didn't say that there should be death and destruction. He simply said that the potential for it was there. But he knows exactly what he's doing, and so do the rest of us. And let's be clear, while Trump thinks that he may have sneakily gotten one over on everyone by throwing in the word potential, posts like this can absolutely hurt his ongoing prosecution. In the January 6th case, Trump will surface this defense that he didn't know his call to action, his tweet saying, "Come to Washington, D.C. on January 6th, be there, will be wild," would result in violence. Now, of course, it did result in violence, but still Trump will say that he didn't know. However, the fact that Trump did it again with similar language, knowing what he now knows about his supporters responding to his calls to arms with violence, he is showing prosecutors in the January 6th case that in fact he does know the consequences of his own words, and yet he uses them anyway. That post will provide prosecutors with circumstantial evidence of what he was trying to do all along. He didn't care that there would be violence. On the contrary, he welcomed it. He incited it. So I get that Trump thinks that he's being slick here, but yet again, he is just screwing himself. And to be honest, that plausible deniability vanished a long time ago. In just the last few days and hours, Trump posted a photo of himself holding a baseball bat next to Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg. He posted other calls to protest on Truth Social, saying stuff like, "The far and away leading Republican candidate and former president of the United States of America will be arrested on Tuesday of next week. Protest, take our nation back." And "We must save America. Protest, protest, protest." He even appealed to the NYPD to defer to him over the very laws they're sworn to uphold, writing, "Can you imagine the great New York City Police Department having to defend and protect the defunders and cop haters of the radical left that want to put their greatest champion and friend in prison for a crime that doesn't exist?" With the intent, obviously, being that Trump is trying to get the police to defend not the law, but him. Just some casual fascism straight from the party of the Constitution. And guess what? You don't have to take my word for any of this. You don't have to believe me when I say that his words are intended to incite violence, because just today, they quite literally did.
The Manhattan DA's office, just minutes ago, law enforcement sources tell WNBC that DA Alvin Bragg has now received a death threat. A note inside a letter addressed to him said, quote, "Alvin, I'm going to kill you." It also contained a small amount of white powder. The substance was deemed non-hazardous, and there were no evacuations or injuries. Law enforcement sources also say the NYPD and now the FBI are both on scene investigating. We're going to go there as soon as we can. The threat comes after Donald Trump has been escalating his aggressive rhetoric against DA Alvin Bragg. Overnight, he posted a warning of potential death and destruction, his words, if he is charged. Critics were already worrying Donald Trump was getting dangerously close to inciting another riot. This will add to that concern.
So we're now at 2 consecutive violent events incited by Donald Trump. At this point, the violence isn't a bug, it's a feature. It is the whole point. And yet, still Republicans haven't been able to conjure up enough of a spine to reject his dangerous behavior. Here's Kevin McCarthy ignoring a request to comment on exactly this.
Secure our borders and make sure our economy becomes stronger. Thank you.
Any reaction to Trump's death and destruction tweet, sir?
And McCarthy's response actually seems courageous relative to Jim Jordan's. According to NBC News, when Jim Jordan was asked what he makes of Trump's warning about potential death and destruction if indicted, Jordan broke out the old, "Oh, well, I haven't seen Trump's posts." And then when he was showed the post, Jordan said he can't read well without his glasses. I'm sorry, but what a little bitch. And the reason that these Republicans are suddenly contending with cataracts and hearing loss is simple. They want the violence too. If they didn't, they'd condemn it. This isn't rocket science here. It is not difficult to condemn violence. So the fact that they can't is a tacit acknowledgement that they want it. Another indication that they want the violence is that they refuse to condemn the guy who keeps inciting it. These people are still squarely in Donald Trump's corner, advocating for him, defending him, carrying water for him. If you think that any of them give half a shit that he keeps trying to incite domestic terror, then you are living on a different planet. But in a way, this all makes perfect sense. Republicans know that they can't win on their ideas, and so they have to find other ways to consolidate power. And so they gerrymander, they eliminate drop boxes, they remove polling places in minority-majority districts, they prevent students from voting on their college campuses, they show up at voting locations decked out in right-wing militia gear, and then when all of that doesn't work, well, then they just demand that the election that they just lost be overturned. And they'll introduce lawsuits like the one they introduced in Texas seeking to invalidate other states' election results. They'll pretend that there was fraud that at no point are they ever able to prove in court. They'll even try to pressure lawmakers and elections officials and the Vice President of the United States to abide by non-existent doctrines and anoint the loser of the election the winner. All of that rather than just to, adopt an agenda that's popular. But of course they won't, because their priorities are to cut taxes for millionaires and billionaires, to protect CEOs who exploit their workers, to pretend that climate change doesn't exist, to cut off fossil fuel companies and gun manufacturers, and to try and slash Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. If you can point me to which one of those things has even a fraction of support in this country, I'm all ears. But otherwise, it's pretty easy to see why Republicans have had to resort to lying, cheating, and stealing. So at this point, the difference between the two parties is as clear as day. In just 2 years, the Democrats have passed record funding to fight climate change. They've passed the first infrastructure upgrade in modern American history, the first gun safety bill in 3 decades, capped out-of-pocket costs for seniors at $2,000 a year, and allowed the government to negotiate lower drug prices, gave veterans health care, ushered in an explosion of manufacturing jobs thanks to the CHIPS Act and the Inflation Reduction Act, added almost 13 million jobs, and brought the unemployment rate down to a near 50-year low. Meanwhile, Republicans have tried to assassinate the Manhattan DA, which comes only after having tried to assassinate their own party's vice president. They've tried to cut Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. They've tried to impose a 30% national sales tax. But hey, if your top political issue is Hunter Biden, they've got you covered. So you can have a party that represents the people, or you can have a party that represents special interests and the donor class. Take all the time you need with that one. Before you go, a quick announcement. I've started a Spanish YouTube channel. Democrats desperately need to be able to appeal to Spanish-speaking audiences, so this is me doing my part. To help that channel get going in the algorithm so that we can finally start spreading our progressive message and breaking the conservative stranglehold on Spanish-speaking media, please subscribe and watch a few videos. The link to that channel, called Brian Tyler Cohen Espanol, is right here on this screen. And of course, to see more of my content in English, make sure to subscribe to this channel as well. The link is also right here on this screen. Thanks so much for watching.